Hi, Hall.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you? I'm so happy to talk to you today.
Me too. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, so we're doing this fun thing of connecting with our alums, especially those that, won awards during their time with us. So we love having you on today. I feel like I'm doing my podcast again. But so we're gonna do a little camel catch up session. Why don't you start off by giving your background and just kind of where you are now? And I'll let you start it off.
Yeah, so I grew up in Dover, Sherburne, Mass. It's just outside of Boston, a lot like most of the people that go to con. And I went to Dover, Sherburne High School, and then I, in my time in con, we like moved to Boston for a second. Now we live in Situate. We kind of pop all around, but now I'm living in an apartment in Boston with actually one of my old teammates who is in the grade above me, which is super fun. Um, and I work at a PR and marketing agency in Hingham, Mass, called Hollywood Agency. So super fun. It's a boutique agency. There's a few of us, so I really just got to jump in and hit the ground running.
Yeah, awesome. I love that it's like that camel teammate to real world correlation. Did you guys where do you guys live in Boston? Tell like if you don't want to
So
give too much away.
we live in South Boston,
Okay.
and a few of our other teammates live all around Boston. About like five or six of us went on a walk this weekend. We have some that live in the North End, some that also live in Southeast. So we're constantly meeting up. And then we also have a few New Yorkers that we make trek out to Boston to visit us.
Nice. I love it. Keeping that camel pride after all these years. That's what it's about.
All
So,
these years.
oh yeah, sorry, it's been like two.
Wow.
Okay, sorry. The other day I actually sat down and thought about when I graduated college and I'm like, that felt like just yesterday, but it's a lot longer. I know it's been a lot. It's been what, 2 years? A year?
I
What is
guess
my mind?
two. Coming up on two. That's crazy.
Crazy. Crazy. Okay, so let's get into it. Let's dive deep. Let's tell our camel fans kind of I'd love for you to talk about, your experience because it was I'm going to use the word traumatic only because I feel for you being that we're in the same club. It's not the club anybody wants to be in.
Mhm.
It's the tearing your ACL not once but twice club. So, why don't you talk a little bit about like your experience as a student athlete and kind of how that's led you into your life post college?
Yeah. So, I mean, prior to the trauma, I guess, as you put
Sorry.
it. No, I'm kidding. Um, I always knew I wanted to play a sport in college just because I think it not only gives you like a family while you're there, something to do, something to keep you motivated, something to keep you on track, but it benefits you so much after college than you'd ever know. And not that we're going into professional sports here, but just the skills that you learn on and off the field being a student athlete. So from day one, I knew that that was important to me when looking for a college. So then when I finally landed on con, and that was also another little funny story that my dad and my sister went to con, and my dad forced me to apply, and I told him I would never go because I wanted to be my own trailblazer and make my own story. But of course I gave in and said I'll visit it, but I'll visit it alone, and I don't
Mhm.
want you there, and you can't talk in my ear. And I went alone. I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the team, and I found out I was going there like a week or two later. So the rest is history. But
Mhm.
yeah, so freshman year it was so fun just having that immediate connection with your teammates. And then fall ball is such high energy and getting to know everyone. And then when you jump into the season, it's like all feels surreal. It's like this thing you've been waiting for your whole life with this recruiting process and club teams and
Mhm.
all this all of this is like finally adding up. But then I ended up tearing my ACL the third game freshman year. So I mean, can't see it coming. Who knew?
No.
But it was really, I hate using the word like special because I feel horribly for her too, but my literal best friend, another freshman on the team, had tore her ACL a few months prior in a practice. So yeah, I hate that it happened to her too, but
Mhm.
to have her with like everything I felt and every single victory I overcame or every step back that I had to be able to check in with her and really lean on her that meant the world to me. And it's something that we still talk about to this day. We just went
Mhm.
skiing over the long weekend and we were like, how's your knee feeling? Like, no, how's your knee feeling? But it's just a bond that obviously we wish it wouldn't happen to your worst enemy, but something that we could share together, like me and you
Mhm.
share together.
Yeah.
An even deeper level because there's two.
Yes, exactly.
But yeah, so then the recovery process is really just something that teaches you a lot about yourself and how to
Mhm.
get motivated and get back on track. And there were times when it was really hard and you're like, I'm never going to be able to be the same player I ever was. And I'm never going to want to make those moves. But having teammates and playing in such a competitive league, it just really keeps you motivated. And then being able to just have that date, like I'm coming back before the next season starts. So the sophomore year, sure, working through it. The brace stunk. It slipped down my leg a few times, but we're dealing with it. And then a big pivot for me was getting in really good shape for junior year and getting really motivated and knowing that junior year was going to be a huge turning point. Thinking maybe sophomore year held me back because of my knee and maybe
Mhm.
I wasn't 100% in it, but junior year was so incredible and we had this unbelievable team and we had this motivation to be so good. And then again, third game, tore the other leg. So here we are again in this like, why did this happen? So um I think the mental toughness kind of showed even more then. And um like if I could do this once, why can't I do it again and do it better and come back stronger? Because maybe I didn't come back stronger. Like
Mhm.
it was the other leg, but like maybe I was just favoring it too much. What was I doing wrong? So um and like you said, I can't not talk about having you as a coach in that moment because when it happened, I obviously knew it happened, but the first face I saw was you and you said it's all going to be fine. And I just remember feeling so comforted. And then for the next, what, 9 months, there was so much comfort from you and support and pushing me to get back, but also that tough love, being like, you can do it. Like,
Mhm.
it just was the perfect balance to actually get me back to feeling so good senior year and feeling confident and never once saying, I should give this up because there were people in my life, like my brother, who I trust with my life. He was like, you should probably give it up. I don't think the world wants you to play lacrosse anymore. But thank God I didn't because that was everything that I could prove to myself, prove to my teammates, prove to you, to prove to my family who had to deal with me in my worst state, that I could come back and I could do it again. So
Yeah, it's
long story
nobody.
short,
The
sorry.
scars are character building for sure, and it's not something you said are amazing. Like it's not anything I wish on my worst enemy. Um, but what you learn from it is the most valuable thing. Looking back is like makes you who you are. And my question was going to be like, what lessons have you learned from being a student athlete? And I think just that little pivotal moment in your life, like you probably had so many amazing moments at Con, which I want you to talk about, but it's like I bet that those small drops are some of the biggest lessons you probably ever learned that are still with you now, that maybe when you face at work. Or and I'd love for you to talk about that, like besides like blowing out your knee as like an athlete, like that is like the worst thing, a season ending injury, 2 out of your 4 years. Like what besides that, like what other lessons have you learned from being a student athlete at Con?
Yeah. So there's actually this interesting thing that happened that I tell people sometimes, and I'll tell you. Um, when I was applying for my internship, my sales internship, my junior, in between my junior and senior year, and this was post two knees, but I didn't even talk about that. I didn't even bring this up when this woman asked me this question, and she said, "Why?" And I ended up interning here, so I guess what I said had resonated with her a little bit. She said, "Why would I hire you, who is an environmental studies major and history minor at a liberal arts college, and not hire someone who's pursuing a communications and marketing degree
Mhm.
at a university?" And I right away, I didn't even hesitate. I said, to be successful in this job, or at least what I would measure as being successful, is being able to think on your feet, have really strong time management, be a team player, be confident, know
Mhm.
how to communicate, both orally, written, and all of those things and more are what I learned from being a student athlete at a small liberal arts NESCAC school like Con. So even though, yeah, a student that sits in a 500-person lecture might be getting a degree in communications and know a little bit more of the terminology better than I do, I still think I could prove to be better at the job based on what Con and what being a camel and
Mhm.
what this has all taught me. And clearly it resonated with her because I got a call back like a week later, but I remember she said something. She was like, I didn't want to tell you, but I went to a liberal arts school too. And I was obsessed with your answer. And so it just felt good to really like prove that you don't need to get a degree in what you want to do. And there's so
Mhm.
much value to liberal arts, and there's also so much value to being a student athlete because it that time management when working at an agency, like some days are horrible and they remind me of juggling lifts and practices and class and studying and my part-time job, but
Mhm.
you get through it. You figure out what you need to do, what you have to get done, and you get to everything.
I love it. I love it. I know you've only been out for 2 years, but there's probably a lot that like now you're seeing in the real world that is so relatable to what you went through. And I love, like, yes, you probably did not love those maybe early morning lifts and those film sessions and having to do work and all those other things. You were also in a cappella, which was a club for you that was important. And now you're probably seeing like how that correlates and that balance and how imperative it was to build those skills through those 4 years on top of what you did in high school. So I love hearing that. And I love that answer. That's such a good answer.
I don't know
Did
where.
you learn that answer from career service at, no, I'm just kidding.
Oh, I think it just like spoke
It
to
was
me.
natural. It was natural and genuine, which is what I love. It's
It was
certainly what I love about you. So do you have is there any sort of like favorite team memory that you have? That I love that you guys are still so close. And that's what I tell, our kids and recruits is that like, and I think I said this to you so many times in all of our conversations is I had that experience where, to this day, I'm still friends and best friends with my teammates. And same thing, I tore my ACL on a Friday. My best friend tore her ACL on a Monday. And it's like, I couldn't have been happier, not because she tore her ACL, but because we went through that experience together. So we are very similar in many ways, but I love that team camaraderie that you guys still have, that you guys are still doing things together, living together. That's what being a Camel is all about. And that's
Mhm.
what being a part of, specifically our program is about. Is like, what do I always say? If you guys are going to be best friends, that's great, but you're going to respect each other first. And the fact that that's stayed with you guys all these years, I absolutely love it. So I'm going to stop talking though. This is about you. So
No,
what's your favorite team memory?
I know my head is literally spinning because I can't even think of one because there's hundreds and like you said again, like I see these girls every day, I speak to them every day. If I didn't text one of them, I have to pick up the phone and call them or FaceTime them
Yeah.
because we still talk so much. But um I don't even know if this was my favorite memory, but I think it just speaks so truly to what you just shared. Um my dad played hockey at Con and he talks to his
Hmm.
hockey teammates as much as I mean, I don't know, probably as much as I talk to
Yes.
mine, even though I live with them. And one day they came every year. They come all the time. They've been coming since probably the day after they graduated. But one day they all came up on on fall weekend, and we got to
Hmm.
all walk around the tents with all the different teams selling their gear. And the lacrosse team would always have two girls sitting there at a time so we could walk around. But I was just introducing all of my dad's best con friends to all of my best con friends.
Hmm.
And it was just like, oh my God, you lived in Blackstone. I lived in Blackstone. Oh my gosh, you lived in the basement of it. And it was just like so funny. And there's just
Hmm.
such a deep rooted connection. And it doesn't even matter if it's where you live or a funny story from the field or a game or the bus. Like the amount of memories we have on the bus, like
Yeah.
why? Some of the trips were horrible, but they were so fun and they were so memorable. So um there's way too many to even count, but I think that just speaks so truly that like all my friends still talk about like meeting all my dad's friends and like wanting to hang out with them. So whenever my dad has his little reunions, I'm like, wish you guys were here. Like,
Yeah.
can't wait
Aw.
for us to do this someday too.
Yeah.
Like when we all I don't know, someday have kids and all that.
That's
But
so fun. I love seeing that connection that you have like to your dad's experience, which is like completely obviously separate from yours, but it's still connected because of the con community. Like that's what it's about. That's what it's being a student athlete. Like the men's ice hockey program has this amazing connection with their alumni. But that's awesome to have that father-daughter bond on a different level.
yeah,
I love it. I
Kelly's a
love
little
hearing it.
jealous. Like
I know your process.
Kelly didn't play well, she played club field hockey, but she went to play
Mhm.
field hockey and then she ended up playing club. But whenever my dad and I like talk about all these incredible memories, not that
Your
she didn't have
glory
an
days.
incredible time. Yeah. And it's just like my dad has these like golf alumni things. And
Mhm.
when I was at con, he'd be like, Holly, come. Or like one of my dad's teammates got inducted into the Hall of Fame when I was there.
Mhm.
He'd be like, Holly, come. And Kelly was like, you never invite me. Like, what? Why am I ever getting included? And he's just like,
She's like, I'm a camel too.
yeah, no, of course she is. But
Yes.
there's something really special about being an athlete, especially at a small school like Con. So,
Yeah. I love it. Um, and so kind of you talked a little bit about what you've been doing after graduation, um, and starting your professional career. Like, do you want to give any advice to, future camels? Not necessarily, I guess it could be recruits, it could be our players, our student athletes that are at Connecticut College now. um, but you are a vet, you're a veteran, right? You've been through the whole process from being recruited to playing to now post college. So what advice do you have for our current student athletes at Connecticut College to kind of help them get where you are or have these experience, whatever
yeah,
you want to dive into?
yeah. Um, I mean, I guess this could go for athletes or non-athletes, but I think sometimes as an athlete, you have to remember that your schedule is busier than people who aren't athletes. Like you have at least 3 to 4 hours tacked on your day. So
Mhm.
sometimes it can be harder to take advantage of different clubs or different things that are available on campus, but it's important to still try to do that. But um, on that point, sort of, I think cells, the career department at Con, is should never be underrated. It's unbelievable. I've had so many friends and siblings, the siblings who didn't go to Con, never get internships, never even try to look. And if they couldn't get a paid one, they just didn't want to do an unpaid one. And
Mhm.
cells basically, by following pretty easy instructions once or twice a semester by going to a few meetings or filling
Mhm.
out a few forms for your career advisor, aka saying, yeah, it's easier for a non-athlete to be able to make time for these things, but like I really would encourage all student athletes to do this too and keep your eligibility for your sales internship, because if you do those simple steps every semester, you can get given a grant for an internship.
Mhm.
And so me myself, I ended up finding the perfect internship, but it was unpaid. But thanks to Con, I didn't have to stress about finances and pursuing an unpaid internship because I was given this grant to be able to pursue something that I was actually passionate about rather than having to say, okay, I guess I'll just go be a waitress. Or, and there's nothing against that experience, but I would have never known that I was so interested in PR, or I would have never known that I really want to work at an agency rather than in house first. And um, I just compare my experience at Con and my internship experience so deeply, especially now kids that are coming in and interviewing and have no
Mhm.
internship experience. I feel badly for them and I wish their schools offered something like Cons does. And I just think that program is so valuable and that everyone should, even though it seems like a bummer on a Tuesday night at 9 p.m. to lug down to the sales office to go to one of those meetings, it is so worth it and it's so valuable in the end because it'll figure out if maybe your internship's what you want to do, maybe it's not, and that's still one step closer to figuring it all out.
Perfect. I like it. Good
Mhm.
advice, Hall. All
Thanks.
right. So I got a couple more. I mean, you and I could go on forever. I love this.
Hit
Um,
me. I'm ready.
yeah. So kind of, I would love to know kind of because you are not doing necessarily what your major was, which I love that because I love the hard work you put into getting that major. But I love that you've kind of gone outside the box. So talk to me a little bit about like, what was that spark at con, or maybe even after con, that got you on the path that you're on? Like, is there a moment that or a person or a thing,
Yeah.
like you were on, sitting on a beach in the summer and being like, this is what I want to do? Can you recall that time in
Yeah.
your life that you had that spark that kind of you lit up and you're like, this is what I want to do, or this is where I would like to go?
Yeah.
Talk
So
about it.
I was an environmental studies major, and obviously my geology class is not pertaining into every day in my social media job. So, no, but seriously, I talked a little bit earlier about the beneficial aspects of a liberal arts school, and that you don't really have to know exactly what you're going to do, because we're
Mhm,
learning how to communicate, we're learning how to read and write and study and think and
mhm,
all of that. So I knew that going in, and I decided that I just wanted to learn about something that I was interested in.
mhm.
So I picked environmental studies and history because if I was going to have to read all the time, I wanted to read about something I was interested in.
Yep.
So, but what helped me, other than my answer in my interview question, I interned for I had a PR and marketing position,
Mhm,
but I interned for the trustees of reservations, which is the nation's oldest like land conservancy. So land and museums and things like that. So it's sort of tied into my environmental studies major there. But I knew I wanted to do PR and marketing because someone who's been super influential for me, especially as just being an athlete and having a lot of the same interests, was my aunt,
mhm,
who she played soccer in college, and then she bounced around jobs a lot, but she is like the head of North America marketing at New Balance.
mhm,
And I just was in awe of her job. She got to sort of tie in that sports world that she had her whole life. And she's always just in like athleisure, and she just
mhm.
loves her job. And I'd go visit her office, and there's like a track and there's a gym, and it's just so awesome and so cool. So I sat down with her and said, okay, what do you recommend? What should I do? And I also learned at my internship that um, there's this big discrepancy between like in-house and agency. And an agency means you have a bunch of clients and you're busy and you're bopping around and you're doing different stuff all the day, all the time. And I was like, well, that sounds fun. I kind of
Mhm,
want to do that. So after just networking with anyone and everyone I could,
mhm.
and talking with my aunt a lot, and talking with the people that I interned for, um, I realized I wanted to go into PR and marketing at an agency. And then I said, oh, do I do go big or small? And then I realized if I go small, maybe I fit small. I went to a small college.
Yep.
I maybe I want to start at a small agency because your voice is heard more. You're jumping into projects more. You're not just doing the same busy work every day. They're really valuing
Yeah.
what you're bringing to the team. So, and I like that it's like that team mentality.
Yeah. So you'd say a couple things have definitely translated from your time at con over to your real life every day.
Yeah.
Um, if you could wrap up your experience at Connecticut College, being a student athlete, kind of now 2 years later, which to me feels it's like crazy. How could you wrap it up in like one word? What's like one word on your experience?
I guess I'd say grateful.
I love it.
I would say grateful because I'm grateful for the professors, the coaches, the teammates, the trainers, the ADs, the woman who
Hmm.
checks you in at Harris. She's the nicest woman in the whole world. I don't know if she's still there, but I hope she is. That we became best friends with our janitor junior year in
Hmm.
Freeman. Like the people make that place so special. And
Hmm.
for that, I'm very grateful.
I love it. That's such a good answer, Hall. I wish that we could have done this in person. It's been a while since we've been able to see our alums or have you guys on campus, but it is my hope that in the near future we get to do this live or get to see you guys and keep carrying that torch of Camel Pride. But I'm so happy that you jumped on this call with me today. And I
Yeah.
love seeing you in your office and I love seeing you thrive in life. You're just glowing with as always, positivity and enthusiasm. But what I love even more is not only your last response, but the fact that you and the homies, you and the teammates are still kicking it together and working out and hanging out. And to a coach like that, that is why we do what we do, so that you guys, have these friendships for years to come, and you guys can talk about all the fun bus rides that you had.
We
Be
talk
thankful.
about them more than you'd think.
Well, be thankful you weren't on that 14 and a half hour. I mean, you probably would have loved it. That one that one we had. But even though it was long, look at that. It's a memory that we will talk about for the rest of our lives. So, from one camel to another, I'm so thankful for you jumping on today and chatting with me. I'm thankful that other people get to view this and see kind of, not necessarily in day in the life of what you're doing, but kind of a check in with the Camels. And I'm so appreciative. And I love your office. I love everything that you got going on. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Coach. It was fun. It was good catching
Yeah.
up.